All right, so let me get to it because of the time factor. I want to say a few things. The first thing that I wish to say is I want to sort of address we say in English, the elephant in the room. There are people who support Benjamin Netanyahu. There are people who oppose Benjamin Netanyahu. May I just say, and I have a track record of over 40 years to prove this, it should be utterly and totally irrelevant to a Jew anywhere on earth, especially outside of Israel, who the Prime Minister of Israel is. I support Israel, not prime ministers. I have never critiqued Israel as an American Jew. You think I agree with everything that any prime minister does? But it is irrelevant. I live in the freedom and security of the United States, 12,000, 8,000, whatever it is, miles away. Who the hell am I to tell Israelis how to vote? So I feel deeply passionate about this. I find it chutzpah, audacious, and wrong. I support Israel if there is a left-wing prime minister. I support Israel if there is a right-wing prime minister. If you want to critique, make aliyah. Then you can yell and scream and demonstrate all you like. But from the United States, give support to Israel. Okay. So I want to challenge many of you with the question that I pose when I have a few minutes only to talk to an Israeli American or American Jew who is not particularly religious. I myself am in a small category, or not small, but in an odd category. I'm deeply religious. I deeply believe in the divinity of the Torah, but I'm not an Orthodox Jew. So I have no axe to grind here. I don't understand Jewish history without the God element in it. And I need to address this because if you rationally perceive what I'm saying, that's all I ask. We are coming up to Pesach, to Passover. And in the Haggadah for 2,000 years is the following line: Shebechol dor vador umdim aleinu l'chalotenu. In every generation, somebody arises, and here is the key word. L'chalotenu means literally to finish us off, to annihilate us. When I was a child, I remember sitting at my parents' Seder, and I remember thinking the rabbis who wrote this were wrong. This is after the Holocaust. Nobody is going to try to destroy us again. People know how wrong that is. I was wrong. The rabbis of 2,000 years ago were right. In every generation, somebody arises to annihilate the Jewish people. In this generation, it's Iran. In the last generation, it was Germany. That's the way it has worked in Jewish history. This is not paranoid, it is fact. There is only one nation on earth, one out of the over 200 countries on earth. Only one is targeted for annihilation. And guess what? It's the only Jewish country in the world. It is not a coincidence that the only country targeted for annihilation is the only Jewish country in the world. It is a challenge to all Jews to think this through. Why would that be? There are hatreds all over the world, but there are no exterminationist hatreds. That is unique to Jewish history. Those who hate us don't want to enslave us, don't want to persecute us. They want to destroy us. That is unique. And sure enough, we are living it again. And as usual, by and large, the world doesn't care. If Europe can rush into Iran and make all sorts of deals for European companies, then by golly, they're thrilled to do so. If foreign ministers and secretary of states can have a blast with the Iranian foreign minister like he's a good old buddy, then he's a good old buddy. We live in a world that is morally broken. This is what we are living through right now. This one nation The Jewish state is the size of New Jersey. It is smaller than El Salvador. And yet it is the preoccupation of humanity. The United Nations has spent more time on Israel than on any other country in the world. It has condemned Israel more than any other country in the world. More than North Korea, the world's one living concentration camp. Israel, the Jewish state that takes Syrians in to give them surgeries quietly, because if you say that a Jew saved your life, you're killed upon return to Syria. Just a little factoid that you don't hear much about on CNN. And Israel is the object of a new blood libel. I experienced it when I debated in Oxford 2 years ago at the Oxford Forum. So it's 2 against 2 at the Oxford Forum. And one of the two that I was debating, well, I think I should tell you about both. I debated, my partner, many of you know, Shmuley Boteach. We debated 2 opponents. One of the opponents was a professor at Oxford, a man named Avi Shleim, Israeli, and he devotes his life to hurting Israel. That is his main cause, to hurt Israel in academia. An Israeli, mind you. By the way, I need to say this with great sadness. I don't think any people has produced as many unhealthy people as the Jewish people have. And I say this with sadness. Part of it is, I believe, the horrible history of extermination, the Holocaust, the persecutions. Whatever the reason, there is a disproportionate number of Jews who hate being Jewish. But they don't merely hate being Jewish. They devote their lives to hurting the Jewish state. There is no parallel. It would be like blacks for the South African regime. Were there any blacks defending the South African regime? Why are there Jews who are anti-Israel? It's a phenomenon. It's a sickness. It's a sickness of the soul. Anyway, the other person we debated was a woman who got a PhD under this man from Berkeley, an Iranian American. And she said, it's on video. You can watch it tonight on YouTube. She said, Israel is doing to the Palestinians what the Nazis did to the Jews. She said this in front of 400 students at Oxford University. And no one except myself, as it happens, obviously, called her out on it. This is equivalent to the blood libel. There is no difference, morally or factually. There is no difference between that libel and the blood libel that Jews would kill Christian children to use their blood to bake matzahs. And they won the debate. Oxford students voted that they won. You know what the subject was? Is Israel or Hamas the greater obstacle to peace in the Middle East? Oxford students voted that Israel is a greater obstacle to peace than Hamas. As I said to them in that debate, it would be like voting, or first of all, it would be like having a debate in the 1930s. Who was the greater obstacle to peace in Europe, Hitler or Churchill? And you're going to vote that Churchill is the greater obstacle to peace. That is how sick the world is morally, and how many Jews don't understand this sickness. Because it is not only this exterminationist idea that Iran has, and the United Nations and its sickness, it's the university. The university has become the single most anti-Israel institution in America. As I tell Jews, if you don't get cognitive dissonance, then the words should be abolished from English. That which Jews most trusted turns out to be their greatest enemy, and that which Jews thought is their greatest enemy and least trusted ends up their greatest friend. The greatest enemy of Israel in the United States is the university. The greatest friend of Israel in the United States are religious Christians. Not exactly what Jews would have predicted, is it? Jews live to send their kid to Cornell. That's the meaning of life for most Jews, what college their kid goes to. Well, let me tell you this, it doesn't matter what college your kid goes to, because whatever college your kid goes to, they will learn to despise Israel. That's the sick fact of life as it exists right now. And now I come to you, and finally, the importance of IAC and the importance of Israeli Americans. Number one, no one can talk with the authority that an Israeli can talk. When you answer these charges, it is more powerful than if I do. You lived it. You are it. You must speak out. Israelis who are quiet in the United States are a puzzle to me. I don't understand them. This room should be 6 times filled more with Israeli Americans. Do you not understand? I would just say to this is, do you not understand? Don't you have aunts and uncles back in Israel? Don't you have cousins? Or your parents or nephews, nieces? I don't get it. I admit it, I don't get it. But there is no authority on Israel like an Israeli. You have a legitimacy. You have an authenticity that no one else has. You must speak out. Number two, we need you within Jewish life. In Jewish life, you must speak out. I debated, I don't even want to say which local college or university, okay? Because I don't want this to be personal. I just want you to know I debated the head of Judaic studies at a local university. The head of Judaic studies, you know what, at that university, and you know what the subject was? Is there a moral distinction? Is there any moral difference between Israelis and Palestinians? He argued there is no moral difference. The head of Judaic studies at a local university. Imagine if Israelis had been there at that debate to say, what are you talking about? It's one thing for an American Jew, as me, as I am, to say it, but it is quite another for an Israeli living here, or visiting here, or whatever it might be, saying it. You have to speak out. And finally, here is a very powerful argument. If you are not active, if Israelis aren't active on behalf of Israel, why should anybody else be active? If that argument doesn't do it, then nothing will. We need you, and you need us. This is a great organization. Please support it, and please get every Israeli you know to think and rethink their silence. Thank you very much for having me. Thank you. Thank you very much. Thank you. Thank you very much.